Fear of God designer Jerry Lorenzo opens up about his mission to impact culture through fashion. Plus, Killer Mike tells us the problems with the American church. And Bryan and Katie Torwalt open up about the powerful story behind their new EP, Praise Before My Breakthrough. It's all in the new issue of Relevant, and it's all coming up next. This is Relevant Daily.
Relevant Daily.
Hey everyone, I'm Cameron Strang. Welcome to Relevant HQ. Welcome to a new week, and welcome to Relevant Daily. This is where we bring you the latest of what you need to know at the intersection of faith and culture. Before we get into those stories, I want to tell you that today's episode is brought to you by Squarespace. Whether you need a landing page, a beautiful gallery, a professional blog, or an online store, it's all possible with Squarespace. They have award-winning templates, customizable settings, and even powerful e-commerce solutions, all without a single plugin. And right now, Squarespace is offering Relevant Daily viewers a special deal. Head over to squarespace.com/relevant for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch your site, use the offer code RELEVANT to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. We're hugely grateful to Squarespace for sponsoring Relevant Daily. Go support them, squarespace.com/relevant. All right, to tell us about those stories and to tell you about the new issue of Relevant, joining us today is our very own Jesse Carey. Welcome.
Hey, thanks. Really excited for this one. This is an issue we put a ton of work into. I'm really excited that it's come out.
Are you telling me that the other 97 issues that we've done, you have been cutting corners throughout?
I would say cutting corners. I would say about 50% to 60% effort. This one I went all in, and look what happened. We have one of my favorite cover conversations ever. You actually got a chance to sit down with Jerry Lorenzo.
Yeah.
He said a lot of interesting stuff, but I feel like to set a little context, maybe for people who aren't familiar with Jerry, arguably the hottest designer in the world right now. His brand Fear of God just released the first of a massive collaboration with Nike for the Nike Air Fear of God ones. His clothing is seen on everyone from Jay-Z and Justin Bieber to Jared Leto to, Kardashian.
Yeah.
And his hat is worn by some of the coolest people on
You are not,
the planet.
Dude, this is crazy. You're wearing a Fear of God hat right now. I'm wearing an Essentials shirt right now.
Look at that.
Fear of God Essentials.
Yeah, Essentials is his other brand. So
Totally not planned.
Evidence that his gear is on the coolest people on the planet.
Coolest people on the planet. Yeah.
That's right. That went all in on this issue. So, but one of the coolest things he talked about, we've heard before kind of his story. Like he doesn't do a ton of interviews, but he has been open about his personal kind of testimony and, his faith. But one of the things that he talked with us about that I hadn't really ever heard him talk about in other places was how he sees his platform as someone in the fashion world, as someone who's really changing and impacting culture. And that's something when you and him sat down, I was really surprised at some of the things that the perspective that he brought to that. Not just his story and some of the inspiration behind his brand, but how he really sees Fear of God and what he's doing in the fashion industry as a platform to impact culture.
Yeah, I talked to him because what's interesting to me is that as an outspoken Christian in fashion, which is rare enough, there's a few others that come to mind. Jerry, is out there, like, if you watch him on Instagram, he's playing TD Jakes clips and he's playing Fred Hammond and, he's just himself, and his faith is a big part of his life. One of the interesting tensions that I wanted to ask him about was, how do you as a believer and following the teachings of Jesus, how do you not defend, but how do you, what's your worldview on like selling a $3,000 nylon jacket? True high fashion. And he talked about the importance of doing things with excellence and using your gifts to, honor the Lord and we serve the Creator, and to not settle. I thought was an interesting perspective. And then he talked about the fact that that fashion can actually impact and change culture, which is something that he feels missionally called to do.
I feel like God has called us to do the best that you can possibly do. And it costs a lot of money to express yourself at the highest level. So I don't think God has given me gifts and talents to compromise the gifts that he's given me. He's given me the gifts and talents to like express myself at the highest level. And I'm just trying to express myself through clothing at the highest level. And that costs a lot of money to do. Like the buttons and the finishing, and it could be cheaper, but I can't afford to compromise my perspective at this moment for price. and I think God has called us to excellence.
And, I think it's because of that excellence that he brings that he has the platform that he has, that so many people want his clothing and want to represent the Fear of God brand. There's another quote, Cameron, that I thought was really interesting when he was talking about when they collaborated with Nike. He wasn't interested in putting a color on a shoe or putting the Fear of God logo on the shoe. He wanted to do something that was iconic. And this is what he said: if I can help change the shape of a basketball shoe and I can create a shoe with Nike, we might even be able to change the culture together. That's how he thinks, in such a level of detail about the way he designs things and the way that he incorporates what he says is a God-given talent that he does see as the way that's going to actually make an impact on culture.
Yeah. If you listen to the new issue or the new episode of the Relevant podcast, we played clips from that interview. Also, the cover story at relevantmagazine.com, the cover story of the March issue of Relevant, which just released, you want to read that. He gets in depth about some really, really interesting missional worldview things that, whether or not you're into fashion, are challenging and something that we as Christians need to consider. In light of the thing of I could charge less, I would like to announce that now a subscription to Relevant is going to be $319 a year. So
and don't complain about it.
I could charge less.
If you got a problem with,
I could charge less, but I don't want to compromise how much money I want to make off of a subscription.
Listen, if you got a problem with it, take it up with the man upstairs, okay? We are not compromising. We don't compromise here. Hey, there's a couple other pieces I know. We can't talk about everything because there's a lot. But, dude, the Killer Mike story we have. Killer Mike of Run the Jewels, he also has a show on Netflix, Trigger Warning. And he talked very thoughtfully about ways he thinks that the modern church has things off, particularly how, Jesus has been appropriated by people in the majority. I'd like to read a quote, one of the most compelling quotes, I think, in the piece. He said, "As an American, Christianity is very white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant-based, so it's very difficult to live anything except for what their Protestant church allows, and that's for anybody of color or not." He said, "There's no room for women in leadership. There's no room for people like sex workers who are morally reprehensible for the church. If you want to connect with God, but you're told you have to do it their way, and for some reason, if you get out of the line, you're expelled." His observations really aren't just it's comparing the modern church really to the time of Jesus, when he hung around ragtag people who were sex workers, who were outcasts. And to have Killer Mike talk about that thing, talk about those issues, I thought was, really enlightening. Yeah,
it's something I learned in the piece. He talked about growing up in the church, and he's not like an outsider throwing stones. He's like, this is a formative part of my life as well, and I maybe had to walk away because of problems that I observed from the inside. You know what I mean? And I thought that was an interesting perspective that Christians need to read. Again, the full article is at relevantmagazine.com. Go check it out. And his new show, Trigger Warning, is an important show on Netflix that
and
you should.
Cameron, I just got a note into my ear. The price for a subscription just went up to $500. No compromise.
No compromise. Also, I'd like to point out that you said a ragtag group of Christians. I was like, I immediately think of little scoundrels out. I'm sorry.
Hey, read about those early church folks. They were not the most scrupulous people. I got not throwing shade. I'm just saying they're not like the
ragtag
televangelists we see today.
Yeah.
Hey, one more thing I want to talk about in the issue. I want to talk about a lot in the issue, but one more thing I think we should mention is the sit down we had with Bryan and Katie Torwalt to talk about their EP, Praise Before My Breakthrough. I know this is something that we've been playing a lot at the office. I know, individually we've had conversations about how, and a lot of people I know too have been listening to this particular collection of songs when they're facing a hard time. So we got to talk to them and find out kind of the story behind the album. And, at the time they wrote it, Katie Torwalt was dealing with postpartum depression and had issues with anxiety. And, she had a really, powerful thought about the way that worship can actually affect situations like that. Like, even when you feel these negative feelings, worship almost helps speaking it to existence. Here's what she said. She said, "Worship reminds me of the truth when lies are creeping in. It sets the record straight of who God is and what he has planned for us. Sometimes it feels like there's not a plan and there is no hope, but that's not true. that's when you have to choose to look for the words that come into alignment with what God has to say. That's probably one of my favorite EPs of the last 6 months or so.
Yeah, absolutely. I would put a bigger window on that. Not just 6 months. I would say year and a half, solid.
Wow. Wow. That's, I mean, a year and a half ago, I was putting like 30% effort into the magazine. That's a long time ago.
Yeah, no, it's a powerful thing. Interesting thing about Bryan and Katie Torwalt, they are my guests on the episode of Unedited, the podcast Unedited, that goes up today, actually. It's a different conversation than the one in the magazine. So if you want to check out the conversation in the magazine, again, relevantmagazine.com, the issues on newsstands nationwide. It's a compelling piece and really powerful how they opened up about their journey. And frankly, they're honest about the fact that they're not on the other side of it. And that's what I loved about that EP, is that these songs were written from the midst of the struggle and not from, they didn't have the luxury of hindsight. They weren't on the victory side of the hard season. And they wrote it, they're raw, they're authentic, and there's something that puts words to a journey that all of us go through, whether we want to admit it or not. And it's so powerful. And it was such an unexpected type of an album from a worship artist. And it's just really powerful. And I love the story that they tell in the issue. So, hey, there's a lot more where that came from. We wanted to highlight a few things from the magazine that we thought the Relevant Daily audience absolutely needed to know about, but there's so much more in the issue. Comedian Joel McHale's in the issue, Tim Keller's in the issue, Kim Walker-Smith, Brandon Michael Hall, the star of the hit ABC, the hit CBS sitcom God Friended Me. So many great pieces in the issue. You need to go check it out. The new issue of Relevant, the March issue, is available on newsstands nationwide. We're in most Barnes and Nobles and other kind of taste-making independent bookstores. You can also check out the full thing at relevantmagazine.com. And if you want to subscribe, we have a special deal for Relevant Daily viewers right now. You can go to relevantmagazine.com/daily sale, and you can get the next 6 months of the magazine for only $6. After that, it's over $500. But
I was gonna say, with temporary compromise, if there's anything I know about faith, you can compromise sometimes.
A little gray area, get it for $6. Then,
it's called grace. It's called grace.
Go check it out. And we'll be back tomorrow with another edition of Relevant Daily. Follow us on Twitter @Relevant. Follow us on Instagram @Relevant Magazine. And all day, every day at relevantmagazine.com. We're bringing you the latest. Hey, thanks, Jesse. Hey, everyone, thanks for watching. Go get the new issue of Relevant. It's out now, and we will see you tomorrow.
Relevant Daily.